Don't call them vampires. The girl from nowhere. This is how the world ends. The Passage, Episode 1, Review, Reaction, and Breakdown. Hey y'all, it's your Twisted Girl Next Door here, and today I am doing a review, reaction, and breakdown of the highly anticipated new TV show, The Passage. Based on the book trilogy of the same name, The Passage is a character-driven action drama that focuses on Project Noah, a secret medical facility where scientists experiment with a dangerous virus that could lead to the cure for all disease. But it also could potentially wipe out the human race. When a young girl is chosen to be a test subject, a federal agent is tasked with bringing her in, but he becomes her surrogate father instead, determined to protect her at any cost, even as Project Noah's work threatens to unleash an unimaginable apocalypse. So, like I mentioned in the synopsis, this TV series is based off of a book trilogy. So, we have to talk about the book trilogy at the end, which I'm going to do, and the differences that may be appearing in the TV show versus the book trilogy. So stick around for that. Overall, this show has a lot of potential. It was action-packed from the very get-go. They did a very good job of flashbacks with what happened versus what is happening now. They did it in a very succinct way in getting to the point of why the world is the way it is at that moment of the story. And it had a very good heart at the middle of it. That's what I wrote down when I was watching it. Heart. Oh my gosh, there were so many moments. I didn't even know these characters yet, and I was already feeling connections with some of them, which, that's really, really good. And the young actress that's playing Amy Belafonte is, oh my god, superstar. Can we say superstar? Because she was awesome in this role thus far. So it's a lot of action, a lot going on, and there are vampires. But you can't call them vampires. That's what they say. Don't call them vampires. They're vampires. We get a monster. That's how awesome this show is thus far. We get a monster in the first 4 minutes of this show, and that's what you should get. You should get monsters every 10 minutes, but I'm glad we got them in the first 4 minutes to look at what we're dealing with here and let you know that this isn't just some action drama. This is also a horror show. Really monstrous Nosferatu kind of Nosferatu pretty much on steroids, because what we find out is that the world is basically set to end based off of a plague that is plaguing most of the population, some type of extreme form of bird flu that's going out over everywhere. What happens is that the theory is that because these test subjects were older and it takes longer for the serum to eventually mess with their bodies, it would be maybe the best bet to experiment on a child. And that is where Amy's character comes in at, because they basically decide, well, we can't just take anybody's kid. Let's take a kid no one will miss. Another social commentary, and it happens to be the young black girl. Message. Basically, the weight of the world pretty much rests on this little girl's shoulders, and she doesn't even know it yet. I actually really liked this kind of overall plot line, right? So it's not necessarily oh, there's an outbreak of vampires. It's no, there's the outbreak of these things that suck blood, vampires. But there's also a very much at stake sort of plot line of if we don't find a cure, which may lie in these vampires, then the whole world's going to die. So it's twofold, and it kind of puts everyone in a position where it's well, maybe we don't want to experiment on this little girl, and maybe we don't want to experiment on these people, period. But end of the world going on, which Dr. Nicole basically, explains when she tells Clark Richards to go get the girl. Now, I'm not really sure if this is a government thing or if it's the super government or the super secret government kind of conspiracy thing. They seem like serious business people because, how are they able to just go into prisons and take people? So this is basically probably the government, but they seem pretty deadly. And I think what we'll probably get as the show goes on is who is the government? Who's the head honcho? Is it the president? Is it some secret order type of thing that's kind of pulling the strings? Okay, so Brad and Amy. Oh my gosh, I think it's pretty obvious that the crux of this show kind of rests, or at least this arc of the show really rests on this bond between Brad's character, played by Mark Paul Gosselaar. Can we just take a moment? I'm so excited. I'm so Here.
I'm so excited! I'm so excited! I'm so scared!
That was a Saved by the Bell reference because Mark Paul Gosselaar was Zach, for all of you who weren't born before 1995. Feel a little old right now. But anyway, Brad and Amy. So what we learn is that Amy is the girl from nowhere. Her mother had a drug overdose. She's kind of lost in the system for 3 days. And then Brad's character and his partner at the time pretty much go to pick her up because the organization out of everyone picks this young girl that no one will miss. And Amy is, I really like the character of Amy. She's about 10 years old and she has spunk to her, but I'm not the biggest fan of kid characters on most shows because they're either like super obnoxious or they just aren't natural, right? They're like, sometimes the child actors can be very acty, where it's like, oh my gosh, this kid is like Juilliard or something. So I really enjoyed, and her introduction was perfect. You know, she's like hustling these guy kids, for win a hand wrestling contest. So we already know she's badass, which is awesome. What Brad is, he's a good smooth talker, right? He's a smooth talker. He's very good at basically, like his partner says, he can sell water to a drowning man. And so there's a whole thing between them where he already kind of has a bond with her. So that funeral scene that they had by the river, Brad and Amy, was really poignant and awesome. And it just, once again, it just goes back to like when it comes to the heart in this show, that's already very much displayed through this bond through these two characters. The other thing was Brad. We find out that he had a young daughter who died. We don't know how she died. That's not really explained, but he has an estranged wife or ex-wife, and they're estranged, but it's very clear they still love each other. So I'm not sure if they're going to pursue that kind of subplot of romance or whatnot, but she doesn't seem obnoxious. Lila, his ex-wife, she doesn't seem, because sometimes they shoehorn in these characters. The one thing I didn't get is when Brad basically wanted to turn himself in because he figured there was no way they were going to get across state lines to get away from the organization, that he decides he's going to turn himself in so that he can get Amy's face on TV so she no longer is the girl from nowhere. So he's basically, turns himself in to try to get a reporter. And of course that doesn't go well because they eventually call the precinct and the organization shows up. But this is the thing. This is taking place in 2018. I can see if this show was taking place in like the 1990s, but it's taking place in 2018. So I was a little confused as to why he just didn't go on Twitter or Facebook and do a viral video. Why are you waiting for a reporter? Does anyone watch network TV aside from like primetime anymore? I don't know. I was a little confused on that. Dr. Lear. That was a very interesting plot because Dr. Lear is basically, his BFF is Patient Zero, who certainly seems like he's probably going to be one of the big bads of the show. And he, we see throughout the episode that he wants to get some sort of reaction from Patient Zero because Patient Zero, aka Fanning, hasn't, moved or anything for like 3 years since he was, bitten and got out of the hospital. But what we also find out is that Patient Zero may be telepathically getting into the minds of the staff at the facility. And of course, Dr. Lear doesn't believe it, even though one of these random guards tells him, I've been having vivid dreams of Patient Zero. But Dr. Lear's like, oh, it's cabin fever. Okay. But I did like the fact that that's kind of that connection between them, that Dr. Lear, he feels bad about, what happened to his best friend clearly. And there's still a connection and still a hope that Dr. Lear has of bringing Fanning out of whatever state he's in. So we'll see where that, goes. We got a little sexy times. And I'm talking about Clark Richards and Dr. Nicole, which I kind of saw happening. They were kind of giving each other the eye. He was at her house. They hooked up or whatnot. But the other thing that was going on there is that Richards has been having these vivid dreams when it comes to Shauna Babcock, which is, she's one of the other people in the facility, right? And I'm already sensing she's going to be a big bad. Problems waiting to happen. And I don't know if you can call it a triangle just yet, because I don't think Richards is in love with Shauna. I think it's clear that she's messing with his mind. And I do wonder if we're going to see maybe, he has these, what developing feelings they're going to have, if it's going to lean more towards him and Dr. Nicole, because they seem very connected to each other, although they're just doing the physical at this moment, even though she's totally unaware that he's having these issues with one of the vampires and he's not saying anything. So we already know that's going to be a disaster, but that was a thing, and it was very interesting, and I don't think it was a bad subplot. Sometimes I'm like, oh my gosh, here goes this weird random romance they're trying to get me to care about, but I did not feel that way. I thought him and Dr. Nicole already had chemistry. I already, before they showed that scene, I was like, oh, they're going to hook up eventually, but then the show surprised me because they're already hooking up, so I was like, I'm right, and also I sensed it. And I really enjoyed that it had really good heart. And they had these characters that already established certain relationships with each other. And they didn't give us too much of it. They just gave us just enough that you can look forward to following it as the season goes on. I think Amy is going to play, of course, a pivotal role. I don't think they'd rest so much on the young girl. I just don't think it's serendipity. I think there has to be a reason out of all the kids lost in the system that she was the one they picked. And it can't just be because she just lost her mom. I feel like there has to be some kind of connection that goes a little bit more than that. I think for maybe the first half of the season, Patient Zero is probably going to be our big bad villain, but I really do think that Shauna is going to be like the major one that people are going to have to watch out for. I think Tim Fanning is kind of the red herring because it's like he's the obvious bad guy because he's like the first one that was infected, but I think Shauna's going to come up and really like, yeah. Not totally scary yet. There were some jump moments, like the first thing with the first 4 to 5 minutes being that monster, and I jumped because I wasn't expecting them to show that quickly. So there are some jump moments. It's creepy for sure. There's some unsettling nature going on. Right now, the first episode very much led on the action drama aspect of the show, which is fine because it definitely showed us the vampires or not. I don't know. Are they vampires? It showed us that, but it wasn't so overt. And I think probably as the show goes on, we'll probably get a bit more of that. There's 3 books, and the book pretty much spans over the course of like 90 to 100 years, and it's interesting because originally, from what the news was saying, is that this was originally supposed to be a 3-part movie, that they were going to take each book and make it a movie, but they ended up doing a TV series instead. And we also know that when Fox originally got The Passage, they had shot some episodes, but then they reworked a lot of the episodes, kind of changing characters around. So it's definitely different from the book when it comes to certain characters and certain happenings. One thing is Shauna Babcock, in the book, she's a man. So they clearly made her a woman for this, and who knows, maybe that was just to kind of spice things up, kind of do a different angle. So I think that'll be interesting to see where they go with that. The other aspect is, well, the book trilogy, this whole thing with Amy and Brad is sort of the beginning. It's definitely not the crux of the whole book. Like I said, things span and go into like 90 years in the future. So it'll be interesting to see how much of this arc that we're starting out with, the whole thing with Project Noah, which is also in the book, but how long that's going to last for the show. I mean, it's a TV series. It can go on for years. So maybe they'll just take their sweet time going through each book. So not too many travesties when it comes to changing the book up. But then again, if they didn't change the book up and they were just like adapting it exactly like the book and this is a TV series, then it wouldn't be really interesting for those who did read the book series, if you ask me. But also, you want to make sure you don't like totally mess up the whole plot line and underlying themes either, which I don't think they're doing. I think if anything, they're putting their own little spin, they're putting their own new spin on it. So what did you think of the first episode of The Passage? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Do you see the potential? Did you read the books? Let me know. Comment down below. Let me know your thoughts. And also be sure to subscribe so that you are the first to know when I post my videos of all things horror and dark fantasy. Thanks for watching. Let's get creepy together.